It is now my honor to introduce today's keynote speaker. Now, this may be called the Employing U.S. Vets Conference, but we make sure we never forget the Guard and Reserve community. And our next speaker is always a huge help for us for all things related to the Guard and Reserves. And I know a huge resource to so many employers, so many organizations out there. Bruce Townshend is Chief of Engagement for DoD's Employer Supported Guard and Reserve Program, you all may know as ESGR. In that role, he helps organizations like yours become great employers for Guard and Reserve members. There is a ton you can learn from him today, and he can be such a valuable contact in your Rolodex, can be a great resource moving forward. I am so happy to have him here as our keynote speaker. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Bruce Townshend.
Walk around with this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It is a real pleasure to be here, and it was a little bit of just a little bit of an exercise this year. You know, you were talking about this is the 12th iteration. I was here for iteration number 1, and I'm happy to say that this particular gathering of business professionals has really grown. It's wonderful to see everybody here, and George, Nick, you guys have done a great job with this. So. How about a round of applause for those two gentlemen? Well, I was saying it was a little bit of an exercise getting here this year. You know, we've had a change of government administrations, and travel is one of the things that's looked at very, very carefully at the moment. So when I requested to come up here, my travel approval had to go to the equivalent of a 3-star general to get up here. But that's the kind of thing we're looking at how we spend your taxpayer money very carefully right now. So while it could be a pain in the neck for me, you as a taxpayer should feel pretty good that we are in fact doing our best to spend your money wisely. So I have some slides here to present to you. What I'm going to talk to you about today, I'm going to talk to you about ESGR, of course, stands for Employer Supported Guard and Reserve. Next slide, please. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the reserve component as a whole and why it exists. So, what? Oh, okay. Oh, I got it. Let's see. Which one do I push? That one? There it is. Okay. Okay. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence by reading the slide to you, but I will occasionally look just to make sure I stay sort of on script. But why the importance of the reserve component? Why does ESGR exist? And a bunch of the other stuff that are on there. And at the end, I will try to save time in my time so that I could take questions from the floor. All right. You know, right now we've got 7 reserve components. They are the Army Guard, the Air Guard, and then the reserve of the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and the United States Coast Guard. Yes, the Coast Guard has a reserve component. It's very small, but it's out there. And there is legislation actually pending to create a Space Force National Guard. So I get asked that question all the time. So if you were going to ask that question, there's the answer. Yes, they're probably going to do that. Roughly 800,000 people in the entire reserve component. But the most important thing on this slide is that 38%, just under 40% of the total force of the United States military resides in the reserve component. Now, that is a monumental shift from the way the U.S. military was built as most of us in this room were growing up. You know, when I was growing up during the Vietnam era, the reserve component was that they were sort of the last resort in a national emergency. If, you know, the United States was drawn into a war, we would take the reserve component and bring them back up to speed, and we'd reinstitute the draft and all that. Well, around the time of Desert Shield and Desert Storm, the reserve component began to be used in much more of a direct support and direct deployment role. It went from being what we call a strategic component, reserve component, to an operational reserve component. And that means, in short, that the active duty forces, in most cases, simply cannot do everything that we, the United States of America, we the people, asked to do without the direct and constant support of the reserve component. And that's important to you as employers, because we're going to ask you, we do ask you as employers to support those people who work from you, who wear that uniform part-time, to do your very best to make sure that they feel like they are supported, they're secure, they know that when they come back, their job is waiting for them, the company's going to welcome back with open arms. You don't have to give them a big party, but you got to say, hey, welcome back. We're glad you're here. Here's your job. We appreciate what you did, and welcome back. That basically, that support, so that service member who's a husband, a wife, a father, a mother, a son, daughter, whatever it is, feels like they don't have to worry about the stuff back home as far as employment goes while they're out doing their military mission and supporting the Guard and Reserve. We ask our service members to make a heck of a lot of sacrifices. They're away from home a lot. They're away from family, away from their job, away from the kids, spouses, whatever it is. That's their sacrifice, and they do it willingly. We ask the family members to make a heck of a sacrifice by letting that service member, that husband, wife, father, son, mother, daughter, cousin, brother, sister, we ask those families to make a heck of a sacrifice by picking up the slack on the home front while their service member goes away and does what they have to do. But you as the employer, we're asking you through ESGR and through the DOD and through the federal government, we're asking you to make that sacrifice by doing everything you can to take care of your employees who serve in the Guard and Reserve. And I know there are people out here who have employees in the Guard and Reserve because I've talked to you. We ask you to make that sacrifice to do your best as that company, as that employer, as that CEO, as that first line supervisor or department manager or directorate, to take care of those folks and make sure that they know that their job is waiting for them when they get back, that they're fully supported, that there's no danger of them beyond regular economic stuff. There's no danger of them losing their job. That's the sacrifice we ask you to make. And that sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen, contributes directly to the readiness of the entire force of the United States military. If you remember nothing else that I say today, that's what I really want you to remember. This is the sacrifice we ask you to make. And at ESGR, we are out here. My job in particular is to support you and help you do that. So you've had plenty of time to read that slide. We'll move on. ESGR, we've been around for just a little over 50 years. We were formed during the administration of Richard Nixon. And in every administration since, ESGR's mission has grown or been enhanced to support whatever the mission is of the greater United States military and the reserve components. If you would like, we are volunteer centric. This is the biggest thing about ESGR. There's a headquarters cadre, of which I am one, in the DC area. There's about 28 of us right now that are full-time. A few of those folks are in uniform, but our vast majority of ESGR members are volunteers. Every state, every territory. We've got roughly 2,400 around the country. And we need those volunteers because they're the ladies and gentlemen who are out there presenting our awards to those employers that are out there working with local chambers of commerce and local Rotary clubs and local organizations like Vets Indexes to support their local reserve and Guard members and their employers. If you'd like to be a volunteer, I will be here all day and I will happily help you do that. The big missions, employer outreach, that's me. I really love working with corporate America, whether it's a big business, a small business, or a public sector employer. We have the military outreach. We have a lot of volunteers go to the local reserve units, whether they're Guard or Reserve, and brief up their service members on what their rights and responsibilities are. And then the ombudsman shop are probably our most important and yet least visible. They're the ones who will actually work to mitigate and resolve an issue if it comes up between you, the employer, and your service member, and something in there where you want to try to get it resolved before it gets into the legal system. And in that, I will tell you, ESGR, we have a very, very tiny piece of the DoD budget, but we are what we call a net positive program. We don't bring in revenue. We're not equipped to do that. Trivia question: who knows the only two parts of the federal government that actually generate revenue? The patent is office, and what's the other one? The IRS. I won't say that they generate revenue, but they certainly collect it. The other one's the United States Postal Service. Those are the only two. But anyway, ESGR, we're a net positive because through our ombudsman shop, our folks who do that save the United States Department of Defense and the federal government at large millions of dollars a year. I think the last figure I saw was about 18 million annually in court costs because we are able to mitigate and resolve those issues between a service member and an employer at the lowest level at no cost to either. And like I said, our folks are volunteers. They don't even get paid for their time. USERRA stands for Uniform Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. Write that down. There will be a quiz. That is the basic law that covers everything that we do, and we work closely with the Department of Labor on that. The Department of Labor is actually the proponent agency, the advocate for USERRA. Boss lifts are a nice opportunity. Anybody here been on an ESGR boss lift? I know you have, a couple of other folks. That is our premier showcase event where we take employers, we work with the local Guard and Reserve somewhere, we take employers out to show them what their service member employees do. Now, sometimes it's a little bit more than what they do on a day-to-day basis when we take you up on an aircraft or put you on a Coast Guard cutter. But nonetheless, it shows you the capability of the reserve component. Statements of support, recognition programs, and awards. While I'm on awards, you know, George talked about the Vets Indexes awards, and if maybe some of you noticed there was talking about the Guard and Reserve, you can't win one of their awards if you don't have one of ours, right? There you go. And we have a robust rewards program. I'm not going to go into it in depth here. I am limited in my time on the stage this morning for that. But I will tell you, we have a robust rewards program, the top of which is called the Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award. And I know for a fact there are some representatives from companies in this room right now who have won the Freedom Award. And if you know you've won the Freedom Award, I want you to stand up. Mike, USAA, there we go, a couple of them. They're all right. That is not an easy, thank you, gentlemen and ladies. That is not an easy award to win. I am the project manager at ESGR every year that culls through the thousands of nominations we get for the Freedom Award, and only 15 employers will receive it on an annual basis. It is my most challenging and at the same time, absolutely most rewarding of all the things I do internally. And we expect the results from this year's competition to be approved by the Secretary of Defense and released sometime in the middle of June. So, I know there's USAA, Fiserv, Warner Enterprise. I know they're in the room today and a few others. So thank you all. Moving on. There's the statement of support. How many of you know if your company has actually signed a statement of support, have it on the wall in your headquarters? A few more. The statement of support is simply a visual method for you to show as the employer your support for your employees who serve in the Guard and Reserve. It is, I got to say this up front, although you're going to put a signature on it and it will have the signature of our national chair and the Secretary of Defense on it, it is legally non-binding. You don't have to worry about making a commitment that you're not prepared to make. It's been vetted, I don't know, at least 1,000 times by corporate lawyers. But it is a nice, visible, tangible way for your employees who serve to see that you care about them and that you are going to not only follow the law, but the letter of the law, but follow the spirit of the law. I've already covered most of this, and I will be here all day if you want to ask questions about USERRA. This is maybe the second most important thing I want you to take away from our presentation today. Your service members, employees who serve in the Guard and Reserve, they have responsibilities that they have to comply with, as do you as the employer. And basically, here they are. The bottom line for all this, folks, is simple communication, open, honest communication. Our service members, our ladies and gentlemen who serve in the Guard and Reserve, for the mass majority of the time, they know it ahead of time, well ahead of time, when their weekend assemblies are, whether we call them a drill or a battle assembly. And a lot of times they know well in advance before they're going to go away for training or a school. They don't always know far in advance about a deployment, especially in the National Guard at the state level. You know, natural disasters happen without any real advanced warning, but communication is the key. Return to work schedule. This is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can ask me about it, or we'll make the slides available to you. The 5-year limit. This one is confusing sometimes even for me, and I've been doing this for a long time. If one of your employees was deployed consecutively, basically on the same mission for 5 years, 5 years and 1 day later, you do not have to take them back. Ladies and gentlemen, that is an extremely rare occurrence. Most of the time, our Reserve and Guard employees, and when they put on the uniform, there's different missions, different kinds of orders. Not all of it will count towards the 5 years. We have trained ombudsmen that can answer the question to help you out if that's a situation you're dealing with. This is pretty much along the same as the return to work schedule, but the bottom bullet there, the escalator. What position would have been occupied with a reasonable certainty if the person had remained continuously employed with full seniority? Escalators go up, they also go down. So if your employee comes back and every one of his or her peers got promoted while he or she was gone, they get promoted too. If, however, your employee comes back and that entire section was either wiped out, downsized, reorganized, they have to go along with that too. So escalators go up, escalators go down. It's brutal, but that's how life works. These are the things that your employees can do and that you can do if you got questions. And I need some more coffee. Like I said, communicate and appreciate. Show your appreciation for those employees. Recognize them at Veterans Day. Recognize them if you do a special employee event. It doesn't have to be anything super grandiose, but I will tell you that a pat on the back and a congratulations handshake from a CEO, a small business owner, a directorate manager, that simple display in front of everybody else of appreciation and thankfulness goes one heck of a long way. You know, Napoleon once said words to the effect that you can make a soldier do all kinds of stuff by giving him a little ribbon to wear in his uniform. Well, this is the same concept. When you say thank you, you make it visible. Those employees are going to be a lot more faithful and ready to work as hard as they can. Our FAQs, pretty much self-explanatory on here. Again, I'm not going to read the slide to you. You're all capable of that. But there are some good things up here to look at. And the biggest one probably is it doesn't matter whether that service member volunteered to go on the mission or was voluntold to go on the mission. It does not matter. Top 10 reasons to hire Guard and Reserve members. And these are very close to the same top 10 reasons to hire any veteran. And while I'm on that, you know, Guard and Reserve members, they are already veterans. They're not veterans in the sense that they no longer serve, but they have served. They wear that uniform. They are entitled to the same, in most cases, the same benefits as any other veteran who came off of active duty in any of the services. All right, we are coming up on my time. The reserve component is an extremely good value for you, the taxpayer. Costs about roughly 38%. We make up 38% of the force in the reserve component, but we cost about 16% of the budget. By any measure, that's one heck of a savings. Let's see. I've already covered a lot of what's up there. Please consider signing a statement of support. I will be here all day to help you work through the wickets on that. We could do it locally wherever you're at, or we could do a grand presentation somewhere else on a national level. All right, I have reached the end. What are your questions pertaining to, and I'm going to open this up a little bit wider, pertaining to ESGR or pertaining to, in a greater sense, to the best of my ability, the Department of Defense on the whole? Sir, I saw your hand first. I can't really hear you. Could you? I think wait a minute, he's bringing the microphone. There we go.
Thanks. The question is, does your program work effectively from small business, like 5 to 10 employees, right on up to Fortune 1000?
Yes, absolutely it does. And that's why we have the volunteers at the local level. Like I said, there's about 2,400, give or take, spread through every state and territory. And they will, small business owner, whether you got, 5 or 10 employees, to, a company the size of like Mike Kelly over here at USAA, which has got tens of thousands. I can give you a specific, for instance, I believe it was 2022, we had 2021 or 2022, we had a Freedom Award winner, our highest award, that was a mom and pop auto repair shop based in Hawaii. And they had 3 employees, the owner, the owner's spouse, and the mechanic. And the mechanic happened to serve in the National Guard and had to get deployed. And just that one little operation, they did so much that they could, in support of that employee when he had to go away and then when he came back, it knocked it out of the park for us. They were almost an automatic finalist and winner of the Freedom Award. So yes, we will absolutely work companies of all size and public sector too, school departments, fire departments, police departments. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just more information that we can take back.
The basic question was, and I was able to hear you, was do we have a toolkit that can help employers kind of build up? I'm sorry to say that we don't have a toolkit as such. We do have a pretty good website that will walk you through everything you need to do, but it isn't intuitive that, well, if this, then, go here. You have to kind of navigate it. One of my biggest initiatives that I'd like to see us do is to really improve that website. But if any of you know how the federal government works, we don't do that ourselves. We farm that out, and it comes at a cost. And right now our budget is such that what we have is what we have, and it's going to be what we have until the foreseeable future. However, reach out to me, I'll help you. Or I will put you in touch with someone locally to wherever you are that can help you as well. Any other questions? Well, George and Nick, it looks like I'm going to give you back a little bit of your time. Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Question, whether or not we could get a copy of the slide deck. Did you mention that?
I'm okay with the release of the slide deck if you guys want to do it. There's nothing classified on there. You'll see there is one little redaction on this particular slide. I blocked out the Twitter and the YouTube sites because they're really not active anymore. Back to that budget thing, we just don't have the budget to really maintain them. We do, however, have Facebook and LinkedIn, and we try to be as active as we can on those. Further questions? Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my distinct pleasure to be with you here this morning. I will be here all day, and I look forward to meeting more of you who I haven't had the pleasure to grip and grin with yet. George, back to you, my friend.
Everyone, please give Bruce another round of applause. What a great keynote.